Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us, the Vivid Group, for this webinar called Robotic Process Automation, or RPA, based on Microfocus Operations Orchestration and UFT Unified Functional, the next frontier for business. Next slide, please. This webinar is brought to you by Microfocus and by Vivid, your worldwide favorite user group in for Microfocus. I will be your moderator for today. Next slide, please. My name is Mihai Grigorescu. Many of you know me or have seen me on other webinars. I'm one of the testing and quality assurance leads for Vivid, as well as an often speaker at the Microfocus events, and I work for Accenture as the Global Testing Alliance lead. Today is my honor to talk to you about or to bring to you these fine folks from Microfocus who will be leading the discussion today around something that's very dynamic in the world today, something that's on everybody's lips, which is RPA, robotic process automation. But before we go into deep diving into discussion, I'd like to take a few minutes and present to you the folks who will be doing the discussion today. So first of all, we have Michael Betan, who is with Microfocus as the Cloud and Automation Practice Manager. He has 10 years of IT experience spanning on IT operations management with a background in software development. Michael is a French citizen who likes the hustle and bustle of living in New York at the moment for its unparalleled culture and diversity. And he has extensive working experience working in Europe as a solution architect. His specialty lies around cloud computing, hybrid IT infrastructure, automation, and DevOps. So today, Michael leads the American pre-sales team, and he works closely with the R&D, practice management, enablement, and marketing with a customer focus. He's going to be the first speaker for today. The second speaker is Monsieur Guillaume Dubuc, who is also a French citizen. He's a product manager working as at Microfocus as an operations orchestration and robotic process automation lead. He is a very hands-on person with 8 years of experience with Microfocus and HP in the middle, with 20 years of overall international IT experience. And his core focus areas are cloud management and orchestration. And he works at the moment in Sunnyvale, California. So we have one French person in New York, one French person in Sunnyvale. I think we're on the right track here, covering the entire globe. And last but not least, we have Mike O'Rourke, who is a product manager with Microfocus. Many of you have seen probably his face before. We have the same hairdo. Michael is a product and marketing technologist with 15 years of experience in cloud, enterprise, and digital marketplaces. And he has a very diverse background experience working with the likes of IBM, Sprint Software, and Neopost. And he holds a degree in management information systems, and he's a certified product owner, Scrum Master, PMP, and pragmatic marketing practitioner. I have no clue what that last one means, but it sounds really interesting, Mike. And at Microfocus, Michael drives the strategy and execution of FT, which is functional test, and RPA, which is robotic process automation portfolios. So that in a nutshell is our very light-hearted introduction to our today's excellent speakers. Before we go into the next session where we start talking, next slide please, we'd like to do a bit of housekeeping. Now, the first and foremost important thing is to know that today we will have a demo portion in this webinar. You will have to use your computer audio in order to hear the audio. You cannot do dial-in and hear the audio from the demo. So please, when the demo comes, just make sure your audio is up and running. Okay? Now, today, as usual, the live session is intended for all Vivid members. It is recorded, so anything that you will see today is going to be available, including the recording, the slide deck, the questions and answers will all be made available to you via the Vivid website. It's going to be visible for all the members. So please don't be shy and contribute as much as possible. Let's make this as interactive and fun as possible. If you have any questions, just look down below on your right-hand side of the panel. You have a questions window. If you click on that, you'll be able to So write down your questions. We will tackle your questions at the end of the session. We'll take as many as we can, time permitting, of course, but please, by all means, type in your questions as you think of them. Don't wait until the end. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, the last portion I gotta tell you about is this little control panel. You can move it around. You can toggle the window full or screen. So it's really a matter of people who haven't really seen GoToMeeting before. Other than that, just minimize it and just enjoy the show. Okay, and without further ado, Michael, take it away.
Thanks, Mihai. And just to point out one thing, there's 2 French guys and a Texan, so we're definitely on the right track today. Hello, everyone. I do want to thank you for having us today. Again, my name is Michael O'Rourke. Aside from being the product manager for Micro Focus, I am also a big fan of RPA. So any opportunity I get to talk about it is truly a pleasure. Before we dive into the thick of it today, I want to start off with a story that will sort of explain how Micro Focus got involved in RPA and the journey we took to get here. Now, many people naturally believe that Micro Focus jumped onto the bandwagon with the advent of RPA and its growing appeal in the maturing businesses itself. However, that's not entirely true. Basically, months ago, we had a lot of UFT users come to us and say, hey, I already have this tool that interacts with my business applications and automates UI manipulated tasks. So I already scripting this all day long. I have recordings stacked up. I've been using this tool for years. So do you have a tool that works for RPA that supports UFT? On the other side of the fence, we had the same thing really happening with the OO side. They're basically echoing the same exact thing. Hey, we have this tool that acts as a controller and already orchestrates all our end-to-end processes across applications. So do you have a tool that's an RPA tool in-house that supports OO? So naturally, it didn't take us long to realize that combining these 2 powerhouses would give rise to a solid RPA solution that our existing and even our new customers could leverage across the board. That sort of begins our ultimate journey as we look forward. Now, fast forward to a few months after that, once we started on this, what really got us interested as we kept moving and diving deeper and talking to our customers is the spectrum of needs across the board. Most of them had the same exact entire problems. They had data entry issues, or they had retraining issues with systems that were constantly evolving. They had the painful task of the manual copying and pasting. They needed to import and export all the different processes. And of course, this is the routine upkeep of the systems itself. But as we delved a little more, and again, what got really interesting is the spectrum of needs for both IT and the business-centric teams. No matter if they worked in finance or retail or manufacturing or any other industry for that matter, our customers were all plagued with the same thing. They had this spectrum of incomplete and improper processes. Even more interesting was the breadth of users who need RPA. See, most RPA providers focus solely on the business side of the house, which generally makes sense because that's where the money comes from most of the time. So rarely money comes from IT. It mostly comes from ultimately the business end of it. However, what we really realized is that the IT person on the ops side is often forgotten in this whole entire equation. And they're traditionally known to being the unsung heroes across it, but we obviously identified that when we started joining these two products together and looking at creating our RPA solution, that there was initially a gap with the IT-centric people who were responsible for helping the end users build out their IT implementations. So if you look at the example here, on the ops center side, that role traditionally plays in the whole entire implementation of the processes within the IT infrastructure. But traditionally, on the other side of the house, on the more business-centric side, you have the dev-centric people who, and for those of you familiar with UFT or other functional testing products, these usually are associated with automation engineers, for example, who would help build frameworks for your reusable objects. And then, of course, there's most importantly the business aspect person who helps define what the process is, to understand what needs to go from, okay, point A to point B to point C, and so on and so forth. So ultimately, this is very interesting finding that we're coming across and understanding that there's a need to be able to start bridging the IT and the business-centric users together. And that moves us forward to where we are today. So how do you define our RPA solution? And that is, it is essentially a scalable orchestration platform that helps both the IT and business-centric users increase their automation footprint. And essentially, this helps them enable their manual workforce and turning them into digital workforces to help them build those enterprise-ready processes. Now, individually, both UFT and OO have the chops to stand on their own. UFT provides the combustion for sophisticated process automation. You can use it to mix and match recorded and scripted processes, or simply to run UFT runtime engines or bots on distributed infrastructures or across virtual environments. You can also leverage UFT's features to automate this task across a broad stack of applications and environments. OO, on the other hand, automates the complete actions using workflows that link steps to standardize any process at an enterprise scale. Here, you can automate the end-to-end processes with a proven enterprise-grade orchestration engine that provides extensive out-of-the-box content and the open APIs to integrate across traditional and even hybrid IT ecosystems, teams, and tools. Now, together, these products provide scalable orchestration, as I've aforementioned, that lets the business users pretty much focus on 5 key areas. One, starting with the ability to automate those rule-driven business processes. 2, to be able to imitate the human effort that they need to be able to reduce those very labor-intensive processes. 3, we want to give them the agility to be able to boost the capabilities and manage those high volume transactions that they typically have to deal with. 4th, they really want to handle and understand, help them be able to manage those constant changes to their applications. As more and more applications evolve, this naturally becomes a challenge for a lot of the users, and they need a better way to be able to mitigate those type of challenges or to be able to face them up front and get them resolved quickly. Last but not least, and this is probably one of the most important differentiators with our solution, and that's be able to bridge the technology gaps between the semi-structured legacy systems. And the reason I want to call this one out is a lot of RPA tools on the market space today rely on APIs, or more, I should say, modernized APIs. This is sort of a challenge for a lot of customers who have legacy systems that, for example, JD Edwards, different type of tools like that, that were not built with APIs, or don't have the ability to incorporate an API. Now, naturally, a lot of those RPA tools becomes a challenge for them because they rely on the API to be able to communicate back and forth between their application. Well, UFT, bringing UFT into the whole mix itself, that eliminates that problem because UFT essentially works on its own object model. That makes it a lot easier for customers to be able to map certain objects between the application and back to UFT. It doesn't have this very modernized API. It's very bare bones automation object model that it uses to be able to identify what those objects are. So essentially, it gives us an opportunity to help those customers who are trying to still support their legacy systems, but also still trying to bridge the legacy systems to the modern systems that they have today. One prime example I can think of is be able to support account information in one legacy system and be able to move it to another one after a company has merged together. So now, looking down from a high level, our RPA solution consists essentially of 3 functional components, giving the businesses the agility to free up the resources for higher value work. First part starts off with the business process workflow, essentially for designing and or recording the automated processes. The next one is the bot itself, and this is particularly designed for interacting with the business applications and, of course, executing the business processes themselves. And last but not least, probably one of the most important pieces in the whole equation of RPA is the orchestration. And this allows the customers to be able to schedule, to be able to remote control or monitor, or to manage the assets that they have. Of course, this is the big piece because this is what brings everything together. So out of this whole 3-pronged process, the process design is obviously the important aspect. The execution is naturally very important. But the whole orchestration piece is really the key that kind of glues everything together. So unlike most BPO-based products, our RPA's approach is very task-oriented, which essentially automates the individual tasks that roll up into the whole process. And given its sashimi-like approach, these tasks are ultimately designed and implemented within hours, days, and sometimes even weeks, depending on how much it takes, versus the months that it generally takes to be able to push these processes, or sometimes even be able to get the work done. And of course, it also gives them the opportunity to obviously glue everything together and design the whole orchestration piece of it from end to end, and essentially eliminating the whole repetitive task they have. Now, RPA's efficiency derives from the handling the multitude of the mundane, repetitive tasks that have yet to be automated, particularly when dealing with those legacy or other systems viewed traditionally by companies as brittle or limited. Ideally, businesses that focus on addressing the root cause of their process or the technology and efficiencies that they have will maximize the most from these key features. For starters, the technology stack that we have, where UFT, for those of you familiar with it, there's over 200 different apps and technologies that are naturally supported with it. The workflow creation and the whole clarity of logic and flow that's critical for automating those complex apps and designing the orchestration process. With OO, it has the very extensible orchestration layer with 8,000 plus out-of-the-box workflows and API connectors. Execution-wise, you run the bots on distributed infrastructures or use OO to trigger those bots across your own desktop environment or your Citrix or virtual environments. Analytics-wise, OO's got very powerful ROI tools that are built into it that help tell you the most popular flows and what their average execution times are. And of course, there's a lot of visual identification mechanisms that are also built into UFT itself. So kind of going back to everything that we've gone through this entire journey, from where we started, where the customers started coming to us and asking us if we had a solution available, to us probing the customers and asking them, getting more in-depth information about it, all the way to putting everything together. We can really define how we fit in RPA by the 4 key benefits. And that's to accelerate the time to value, it's to reduce the human error, to help these customers decrease the costs, and ultimately help them increase the productivity. So now that we've kind of taken a journey, or now you sort of understand the journey and how we got here, I want to take just one more moment before handing off a demo to kind of talk about ultimately how we got, or how our customers are using it today. Most of you familiar with RPA understand that there's a great breadth of different ways you can leverage it and different industries that support it, whether or not it's for doing renewals of insurance, or to help exemption processing within finance, or help for patient registration in healthcare. There's all sorts of different use cases that RPA are very tailored to and will fit in with. So just to give you some high-level examples of 3 customers that we've worked with. Naturally, we have a lot more, but the 3 ones I kind of cherry-picked out here that's kind of started the journey with us and has still with us today. First, I want to start with this financial IT firm. The biggest thing about this firm was not only were they able to manage probably about 1,600 cases each month, a total of 15,000 for the first 9 months. But the biggest thing we're able to help them with is eliminating the security concerns. And the way we did that is how they manage their virtual accounts. All their virtual environments had unique logins, and they had to repeat themselves or renew themselves every 30 days. So they naturally had a challenge when they're using other competitive tools before they came to us. And when they got to us, they realized that they could simply script this process and automate it through using a PowerShell utility also, and we completely eliminated the problem. Now they have this automated process that automatically renews these virtual accounts, dozens and dozens of them at the end of every month. Next use case is this banking group in Italy. What's particularly fascinating about their situation is they had a very old legacy system that they had for HR that did not have an API, and they kind of struggled with the same issue as well, as kind of I mentioned earlier, where they went through other tools and realized those tools weren't working for them because their API, while it might be powerful, it was completely useless because essentially they needed something that supported their legacy system that didn't have an API or the dependency on an API. So ultimately they contacted us and we worked with them, and we were able to help them through that whole entire process. And therefore, they're able to save a lot of money by using the existing tools they already had. And of course, ultimately reducing their employee workloads by automating those processes. Last but not least is this big multinational manufacturer. As we started working with them, they had a lot of ERP applications, mostly primarily Oracle. They had about 11 different flavors of Oracle, Salesforce, and so on and so forth. Within just a few months, we were able to help them automate 54% of those key transactions that they had. Overall, through the first steps that we worked through and identifying the processes they wanted to automate, they were able to manage 90% of those RPA transactions and their automated test processes just through UFT alone. So ultimately, they saw the significant increase of the quality, the competitiveness, and they were able to help maintain the relationship with their customers just by implementing this whole process. All right, now I think it's time for me to stop talking. And I am going ahead and pass on over to Guillaume to start the demo.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, guys. My name is Guillaume Dubuc. I'm product manager of operations orchestration. And today I'm with Michael Betan, who is the practice leader for America. The objective today is to present you the power of our orchestration tool and especially how we play in the robotic process automation space. So for this matter, we would like to share with you a live demo of the product, starting with an infrastructure IT process automation and finishing with a business process use case. So we want to share with you our ability to automate any kind of processes, IT process, business process, by the way of using software robots, API automation, OCR, and ChatOps technologies. So the demo is going to be a dialogue between two personas. And for this matter, I will be the QA engineer, and Michael here will be the IT ops guy. Hello, Michael.
Hey, Guillaume, how are you today?
I'm good, Michael. As you know, Michael, as a QA engineer, my job is to test applications coming from the dev team. And in order to do it, in order to test all these applications, I need to get multiple platforms multiple times. And today, unfortunately, everything is manual, meaning that I need to go to multiple teams, multiple tools, multiple processes. I need to go to the service management tool. I need to go to the backup team, server team. So today, bottom line, it takes me a long time to get it done. So my request for you is I would like to get a repetitive process that will allow me to get the same platform multiple times until my tests are done. Could you help me today, Michael?
Yes, sure. Let's do it together. First thing, let's connect to the Web Studio.
Okay.
And it's a HTML5 web-based studio. And on the studio, we will automate the process unit. The first thing you will want is the ability to clone an instance and access your application. And for that, we'll use the content out of the box provided by the orchestrator, and we have 8,000 operations provided. One of them is Amazon Web Services, and we just have to drag and drop deploy instance and configure a few inputs and outputs to have it working. Okay, the first thing is we want to configure the identity in order to access the API from Amazon. Then the credential and the image ID, the application you want to deploy in this case. Then you want to specify the instance type, small, medium, large, and you should be good for inputs. Then you would like at least two inputs. The first one is the instance ID and the IP address to access the web URL of your application. You just have to save and this operation is done. But I guess you want to be notified. Are you using a collaborative tools, Guillaume, today?
Yes, we are using Slack internally.
Great. So yes, we can integrate with Slack, Microsoft Teams, Mattermost, and we can push information dynamically to these collaborative tools. And by the way, we have a bot named Maestro, and we can interact with Maestro to trigger a workflow on the fly from the channel directly. But for the matter of this demo, what we want is just to push dynamically information to the channel. But with the bot, we can also have incident and event, as you can see it on the screen. Let's go back to the studio.
You can bring the tool or tool in the middle of a chat with developers, for example?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So let's take the Slack content we have and just drag and drop a pass message. The goal is to push dynamically the right, information. So we will start with deploy instance, then we'll do a post message, and I will go to input and configure for inputs. The first one is the token, how to interact with the API. Then the channel, which channel we want to use to post the message, and then the text message. So here we want to say your EC2 instance is ready, and we want to provide dynamically the instance ID coming from the output from before. And then we want to give the web URL to access the application. And for that, what do you need, Guillaume? Just the IP. I save, and then I just have to drag and drop success to finish my workflow. By default, it's using a failure here, but I can override and choose my own failure process. Okay? Then I can use a debugger, which is completely embedded, in order to troubleshoot my workflow as a service author.
Okay, so to summarize, Michael, you just have to use what you call content. So all the operations that you have in the left frame, drag and drop what you need and link them and maybe configure input, output, and that's it?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's great. It's a great tool, very simple to use.
So let's see the outcome. If we are going to EC2, we refresh, we can see a new instance has been provisioned, F12 with the right size and the right image. Now, if I'm going to Slack, we can see a new message pushed dynamically with the instance ID, F12 again, and the IP address to access the application. So here you go. We can access your application just here in order to access the application. Oh, login failed, reset password required.
Oh, Michael, don't tell me that I will have to go to my service management tool, open an incident ticket, communicate back and forth with the support team, etc., etc. Don't tell me that, Michael.
No, actually, we can automate this part of the process. We can create a change on the fly and, fulfill this change automatically using our content. What are you using today? Are you using Smax?
No, unfortunately, we don't have the chance to use such modern application. We use a very old one. And by the way, as you said at the very beginning, I want you to prove me that you can integrate with any kind of technologies, even the very old ones. So,
Yeah,
yes,
sure.
so we use this one. Yes, we will use this one.
Sure. So we are completely agnostic. Doesn't matter if it's BMC, CA, ServiceNow, our own technology Smax, we can automate because it's all about API and content out of the box. So what I will do here, I will just go to the ServiceNow content and drag and drop create change in order to request a reset password, part of the fulfillment process. But to do that, first I need a password. I need to generate a password using my orchestration workflow.
So hold on, Michael. So I heard that we already did this step and we already orchestrated this task, but it's Python based. So can you reuse it? I'm wondering if you can reuse it and
yes,
include it in the workflows that you are building. Yes. Okay. Great.
So a line of business could have, just use Python, YAML, and open source in a standalone way, and they can contribute back to the core IT. So let's say they go to GitHub, they found a great generator password, then they can just use the open source engine from our RPA and orchestration solution and develop their own YAML using IntelliJ, for example, as an IDE. They can build a new operation, just copy paste the Python operation and make it available. Then they want to test and troubleshoot. And they can just use a CLI, which is completely standalone, to test, this workflow execution. And as you can see, it generates a new password. Then they just have to go to Git and push the new file, and it will push this change into the repository. As co-writing, now I can come back and go to the SCM repository and pull the changes from the Git, and I will be able to access and reuse the content pushed by the line of business. So let's do it, Guillaume. Let's go to utils and let's open the password generator Python-based operation. We can see it's a Python action. I can even edit as directly from the designer, or see the YAML representation from the UI. Now let's go back to the workflow. I want to generate a password, so I will just drag and drop generate password. I will configure one output, which is the password, right? And then I will configure this password with this change, and I will configure the change I would like to push. Reset my account using this temporary password, and I just have to provide the password from the output from before. Save, and here we go. I just have to save and click play again to replay and test again the same workflow.
That's great, Michael. So again, you just drag and drop some content, some new operations, and include them to the entire workflow to make it done. So it's very easy. It seems very easy. And just to summarize the other one, confirm me if I'm wrong, but so you offer a kind of hybrid authoring experience, so graphical or textual in the same UI. This is what you offer, no?
Absolutely correct. You can do orchestration as click or orchestration as code using YAML and open source and leverage the same enterprise grade platform.
Okay.
So let's see the outcome. Let's go back to EC2, we refresh, we see a new instance, 2CF this time. If we go to Slack, we see a new message. I can click on the Maze application just here. And by the way, if we go to change, and we see now a new change has been created, reset my account using a temporary password, and it was done just now. Okay, perfect. So we created the change inside the service now. Now we can connect to your application. Yes, voila, we are connected to your application, and I can even see your face, Guillaume. That's great.
Fantastic, Michael, fantastic. It will facilitate dramatically my job. So thank you very, very much. So Michael, I have another process to automate, and this time it's not an IT process. It's not about provisioning. This time it's about business process. So I'm wondering if you can use this product, your orchestration product, the same one, to automate this business process. So IT and business combined together.
Yes, absolutely. We can automate this business process. Can you describe this business process, Guillaume?
Yeah, so today, as you can guess, AWS is very costly. I need to check my banking account balance very often, every day. And the process today is manual. Every day, I need to go to my bank. And first of all, I have to give my driving license ID to the agent. And the agent has to fill from this ID a couple of information, my first name, last name, and some other ones. And then process it in their mainframe banking system. And as far as I know, this old legacy system doesn't have any API or any way to connect or interact with. So again, I'm really wondering if your solution is able to automate this business process from my license ID to the legacy mainframe banking application.
Yes, and let's do it. So the first thing is you need a mainframe, right? And we will automate exactly the steps you have to do. And for that, we need to do a bottom up. So let's start with the recording. And the first capability we need and we have with the new RPA solution is a recorder. So I just have to click record, click OK, and it starts a recording mode. Then I will do exactly the step a bank agent will do. So it will go to the mainframe, it will enable the transaction, it will log as a bank agent, and it will go to your account balance. We can see your name, by the way, Guillaume. We can also see your savings account, not great. And let's go to the checking account and we can see $514.80. Okay. Once I finish the transaction, I just have to stop. I can close it. And what we can see on the left is all the steps have been recorded. It's not screen scraping, not clicks, but the native Roomba protocol recorded inside the recorder. But it's not finished, Guillaume, right? We need to parameterize. We need to have something generic. We need to give the inputs, first name, last name, but also get an output, which is the account balance. The bank also need to check your identity. You said you will give as an input your ID, and they need to make sure that you are a bank, customer, and you are allowed to access your account. So for that, we need another layer, an orchestration layer we can leverage to automate this process. And for that, same thing, we need a studio. And the first two steps will be get the first name and the last name extracted from your ID. Once we have this information, we need to go to the database from the bank and check your identity. Only then we can trigger the robot and provide as input the first name and last name. The robot will execute in a generic way this transaction, get the account balance, and give it as an output. So we just have to configure two things. On the workflow, we need an input, which is a description, the text from the ID, and as an output is account balance. Okay. And then, as an end user, you want to trigger this business process in a self-service way. So we need the self-service portal. For that, we will use SMAX this time. And we will go to the service catalog from SMAX, and we just have created a service offering we can consume. The name is Check Bank Balance. I click on Request Service, and this offering will automatically trigger the RPA solution to fulfill the request. And here we have your ID with everything we need to check your identity. When I click Submit, it will automatically fulfill the request using OCR technology to transform the image to text and parse it to the orchestrator, and we can see a new workflow is running inside the controller with all the steps. If I'm going back to the robot, what we can see, and I don't touch the screen, is it triggers the transaction end to end, giving as parameter the first name and last name, and it will collect the account balance from Guillaume. If I'm going back now to the robot controller, we can see that the workflow is almost successful, and then it will provide to the self-service portal, a solution. A new solution has been provided. I just have to click See Solution, and we can see if I go on full details, the solution has been provided $514.80 as your account balance. We can see your ID and the OCR translation from image to text which has been provided to the orchestrator to parse and check your identity. So here you go, Guillaume. Voila, we automated this business process end to end. Okay, Mihai, let's move to the Q&A.
Okay, great stuff, and thank you for the demo. It was really, really awesome. Okay, let's take the questions up. We have quite a few. So let's take the first two from the top. So the first, probably the most important one is, how is your product different than other RPA products?
Okay, I will take this one. This is Guillaume. And first of all, I would like to reiterate the fact that we have more than 30 combined years of experience in the automation space with more than 7,000 customers. So we are not a startup developing a new product from scratch, but we are combining two powerful enterprise-grade products together. And first, as you see during the demo, our orchestrator is a huge differentiator. This enables not just only simple RPA use cases, but also complex hybrid RPA automation. So we have the ability to provide business logic and decision-making to any RPA task. And as you saw earlier during the demo time, our studio, our designer, offers an hybrid authoring experience, graphical drag and drop and textual based on YAML. And in addition of that, we provide more than 8,000 operations and workflows out of the box, what we call content. And this content will allow you to accelerate your TTV and minimize your TCO. And same goes for our recorder, which is not a screen scrapping technology, but an intelligent object recognition, supporting more than 40 protocols, such as SAP, Terminal Roomba, or Web Protocol.
Okay, great stuff. All right, thank you for that. I hope that addresses the first question. The next question is, how scalable is your product?
I'll go ahead and take that. This is Michael O'Rourke. Our next evolution of the product, which will be released fairly soon, will be able to handle the scalability and overall performance. Ultimately, the bots will be able to scale through a queuing mechanism using RabbitMQ, and all the executions themselves can be controlled through admin-based configuration worker/robot groups. Each of those workflow executions will be added into a central queue, and each robot will essentially consume a new job when they become available. This way, RPA itself will easily distribute the load with those concurrent jobs.
Okay. All right. So you're done with that question, I would imagine, Mike?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, let's take the next question here, which actually spans across 2 or 3 questions from what I've seen. People are asking about licensing. So the question is, we have a few UFT enterprise licenses, perpetual and concurrent. We'd like to understand if using the UFT enterprise for this whole RPA process, as well as the testing tool, is covered essentially by the same standard license, and there's no other add-ons that you need to bring in or anything that's licensed.
As far as carrying over the license, we're in the process right now of going through the whole exercise of defining the pricing as a whole. Our ultimate vision is to allow existing UFT enterprise user licenses to be able to leverage RPA. As far as the fees go, that's still really in the works right now. Like I said, it's going through the whole pricing work group that we have internally. But ultimately, we are trying to provide some type of path where existing UFT users will be able to leverage RPA very easily without having to buy any additional add-ons for UFT itself. So if you have an existing UFT license, all the add-ons that you already have existing with it should be able to use. Excuse me.
Gotcha. Okay. So just to recap, the same licenses as it stands today, it's just ON UFT as you have them, as the clients have them today. correct?
Right. Yeah. So and ultimately,
Okay.
we'll have a pricing available to where you can stack OO on top of the existing UFT instance.
Okay. All right, great stuff. Let's see if we scroll all the way down, and Mike, I need your eyes on the questions box as well. Do we have a manual in order to integrate OO with UFT? Do I need OO knowledge, or is it a simple task? Coming from Marco Rodriguez.
Unfortunately, on my end, I can't see the questions. I only see two of the questions.
Just
Not
close
sure.
that window down and reopen that.
I will take this one, Mirai. So yes,
Mm-hmm.
so you don't need any specific skill set. We have a specific content pack to integrate the two products together and to have the back-end communication between the two products.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then another question that's almost linked to this one: once the RPA process is finished by the developer, how does the end user execute this whole process again? Does the client need to be technical?
I can take this one. It's fine. So no. So first thing is you need to have a service author developing, the workflow, the process, and once it's finished, you promote this workflow to the, the production server, the controller, and then you want to trigger this, orchestration from outside. And as an end user, I don't want to go to a technical, RPA solution. I want to go to a portal and do few clicks, like we did together during the demo, like Smax, but we'll also provide in the new solution a service portal to just do few clicks and consume this business process. So the answer is yes, for a service portal. We can also use chat ops. We have a bot, as I showed during the demo, Maestro, and we can trigger an orchestration process directly from the chat, from Slack, from Mattermost directly.
Okay, gotcha. All right. And then another question that also spans across multiple from multiple people, and I think the main thread here is: does this ARPA process support virtual or physical? So does it work on VM, on desktop, or both?
I can answer that. It essentially, right now, out of the box, it supports both. I mean, if you have a bot that's on your desktop, you can. It also does support the virtual environments as well. So if you have it running like in a citrus farm, for example, you can obviously do that. There are some near term, I mean near term as in like really soon, options to be able to automatically log into those different environments to make it a lot easier for the users. But ultimately, you could run on a virtual environment if you wanted to.
Okay. Okay, great stuff. So the answer is yes, we can do it on all these environments for now, and we're not getting into the AWS or cloud discussion right now.
Not right now. It's
yeah.
obviously a roadmap item, something we're technically looking into. There's obviously an investment area there, but not at this time.
Okay, and let's take one last question before we move over to the next one. Question from Asvar Dawar says, does this RPA handle interaction for all platforms, .NET, Java, desktop, etc.?
Yeah, I mean so with using a UFT in there, you could any type of technology has support with UFT can handle those individual UI manipulations, whatever technology it has. UFT alone has, if you really break it down to between Java to web support for React and for Dojo and so on and so forth. I mean, anything that UFT can essentially support, you can manipulate, and it'll support it as well.
Okay. And one last question, really the last question here, because it's close to heart as well, because I've experienced this myself. It's about the question from Nidhi, who says, we have a Siebel, which we had automated business processes end to end. the problem was keeping the computer unlocked since UFT cannot input click on a few elements once the keyboard locks and the computer is in a suspended state. Is it important to keep the computer unlocked during the entire time when ARPA is running? So
No,
I
that's
think
actually
I can answer that to you.
oh, well, it is important, yeah. But we're actually have a new enhancement coming very soon, and by soon I mean really close down the pipeline. That's going to eliminate that need to be able to do that. So you can automatically configure it to automatically log into the different environments, so you don't have to constantly go into that the login screen all the time.
Yeah. And actually, from dipping into my own practical experience, I used to have the same issue, and we found a couple of ways to circumvent the lockout procedure. And the best way, yes, is to keep the VDI up and running with no lockup on it. That obviously, takes up a lot of computing resources, but at the end of the day, if you really want to go that way, UFT can be kept up and running with ARPA on an open-ended VDI. Okay, so times for questions are up. So let's just go and talk a bit about what's available in terms of events. For those of you who are aware of the upcoming Vivid events, you can see them on the screen. If not, please do so by going onto the Vivid website and checking our calendar for events, and you can see every single thing that's out there. For the next most important events, next slide please, is Micro Focus Universe 2019. I would like to make a quick 2-minute shout out for the universe. It's very important. It's probably one of the most important customer-driven events that Micro Focus has, with the real-world tips and tricks and best practices. You're going to have one-on-one meetings with the Micro Focus leaders and product managers, like the people that you've heard now on the call. You're going to have a lot of workshops. You're going to have a lot of Vivid stuff happening as well. You're going to have private hosted dinner with the Micro Focus people, and pretty much it's everywhere from business execs to technical users that are welcome in this universe. And if memory serves me right, a few years ago when we had this in Vienna, they had these little outstanding guys walking around or riding around in bikes, and they were selling croissants out of the back of their bikes. It was really, really awesome. So if anything, if you really want to try some really good bakery stuff, then go to Universe in Vienna, which is a weird way to to promote it, but hey. Next slide, please. We will have also for the North American counterparts, we will have the ADM Summit for 2019 in Chicago between April 9 and 11th. Again, it's just a summit that's organized just for the purpose of for the purposes of ADM, of application delivery management. So, Mike, are we going to see you there with your ARPA and OO and UFT demos at this ADM Summit?
Which one? Which Mike?
The ADM Summit in Chicago. Yeah, I know.
Team M&M.
Yeah, the ADM Summit. We'll see you there.
Yep, I will definitely be there.
Great stuff. So for the North American-based folks, or for the ones who can cross the pond into the States and come over, you'll get the chance to see Mike and his gang over at the ADM Summit. Next slide, please. This is the last slide, and again, thank you for attending today's webinars. Please make sure that you complete a short survey after the webinar ends. We love to hear from you. We love your feedback, and also be sure to opt in for more information from Micro Focus. And just a reminder, you will have the on-demand recordings and slide deck that are going to be posted on the Vivid website. And in the next few days, you will receive an email with those links. With that being said, we again thank you for your precious time today. Thank you once more, and goodbye.